We are going to put a pin in that presser from yesterday's Boulder scene out of Colorado and bring you some breaking news now. A live press conference happening out of Charleston with the governor there as well as the sheriff talking about some ICE representatives are there as well. Let's go ahead and listen in here on Live Impact News.
A source of a lot of disruption, crime, assaults, drug dealing, etc. going on in that particular area. And I would tell you, we've heard from some of the business owners since this operation yesterday morning, very grateful to see the activity to be hopefully, well, will go away, will not come back from here. I want to tell you a little bit about what happened during the operation. I'm going to get in to what I can. Please remember, we're roughly 24 hours post-operation. And there's a lot of investigating still going on, a lot of fact-finding still going on, and a lot more will come with this, but I want to give you the highlights. So there were 116 arrest warrants served. These are warrants that were already on file, both criminal warrants and warrants with our immigration partners, and they can talk about that. Of those 116 arrest warrants, 80 individuals were actually served those warrants. I understand in that nightclub, and we'll talk a little more about the illegal activity going in there, probably over 200 plus people that were in that club. That's a lot of criminal element in that nightclub that was in there. Of those were 2 high-level cartel members that were arrested, including those that were with the Los Zetas Cartel and from the Tren de Aragua gang. So again, these are folks that have affiliations. There are others that we're looking into right now, checking their affiliations, and we believe that number may grow. We've also identified a number of potential trafficking victims who were removed from that situation and are being assisted. We had 1 missing juvenile that was recovered in that location. Let me say it again. We had a juvenile that we ran who was missing, a missing person. We're digging out a little more to find out why that missing individual wound up in that situation, but y'all can only imagine, so we'll continue working on that. There was 1 international warrant, a murder suspect warrant, that was served and located. An individual was from Honduras wanted for murder by Interpol. Let me say that again. We had a murder suspect from Honduras in this club. We were there for a reason, to protect this county, protect the state. Plain and simple. Folks, we identified, other than those that we were the potential victims of trafficking, we identified 10 underage juveniles. Again, this is an unlicensed, unsanctioned bar. Check no IDs, didn't matter. So when bars closed at 2, at 3 o'clock, people started coming. They just come in here. No matter how old they're not checked, but 10 of them were juveniles. Our youngest that was removed from that situation was 13 years old. 13. What were they doing there at 3 o'clock in the morning, or after 3 o'clock in the morning? Firearms were recovered from the location. A quantity of cocaine was seized, and a quantity of an unknown controlled substance was confiscated. Testing's being done. Again, we're 24 hours into this operation to determine exactly what that was. We have 4 vehicles seized from the property, all as a result of possible drug issues that were identified, and we're getting search warrants for those vehicles. There's a large quantity of bulk currency that was recovered. We don't have the number on that. Again, that's part of the investigation. We have to get a bank counter to identify that. Why is that important? This goes back to some of the other things that are being investigated on this location, the drug trafficking, the money laundering. These are all specific items that were being targeted, and we were successful in handling. Facts matter, folks. That's why we're standing in front of you. Wish we could have put more out Sunday when this operation is over, but as you can tell, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of great agencies involved assisting to make this a success. And I would be remiss if I did not mention our own code enforcement in Charleston County. They assisted us as well. We have representatives here from the county that assisted us that will now have already put the seal on that business, stopping it from ever operating again And we're going to be looking at other businesses that are operating illegally and becoming an issue in our community that continue to have this kind of criminal activity. So just want to share that with you. I'm going to ask two of our speakers to come up and speak in a moment and give any comments they want. But again, I think it's very, very important that we get the facts out, address the rumors that are everywhere going on right now, and to let y'all know that I'm doing exactly what I said I would do as your Charleston County Sheriff, that is identifying, aggressively going after those that are committing criminal activity in our county. I don't care who you are or where you're from, we're coming after you, and we're going to make that happen. So I'm very proud of what all the agencies did at that operation. I was there, very long day, but I make sure I was there with them to see exactly what these men and women are doing and support them. So very proud that we got this type of element out of our community. We made it safe for some of our young people, and we're going to continue working on that. From here, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Mark Hill from SLED. I said their agency was the lead agency. We say lead agency, but there's so many. We were all supporting each other, so it was multi-agency. But if you had to say who was the one that got this started, his fantastic team who worked tirelessly, and I'll let Chief Keel take the podium. Chief?
Thanks, Sheriff. Mark Keel, Chief of SLED. I just want to start by recognizing the number of units at our agency that participated in this investigation. I don't know, it's been some time since we've had a case where we had the number of participants that we had in this case. I think we had over 60 agents that were deployed here Sunday morning working. They were from our alcohol and narcotics unit, our human trafficking unit, our immigration and enforcement unit that works very on a regular basis with our ERO and our ICE folks, our HSI folks, our dogfighting unit, our SWAT team was here that assisted in the entry of this location. Our aviation unit was here and provided aerial overwatch during the course of it. We had folks here from our fugitive unit, our analysts from our fusion center, our low country agents, and again, it was a large operation. I think one thing that I always say about South Carolina is it is amazing that the law enforcement relationships that we have and the way we get along, both local, state, and federal agencies. We work good together. We collaborate with one another. We don't have egos. We get out and we do the job and try to do everything we can to protect the citizens of our state. We will continue to do that. And there will be more operations like this as we continue to work to bring justice to those who have been victimized and to also bring those to justice that have violated our laws, both state and federal. Again, I want to thank all the agencies that participated. They did a wonderful job on this investigation. It is not over. It continues and will continue until we get to the end of this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to ask Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent in Charge Morant, if you'll please come up and say a few words. They were key in this operation.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Cardell Morant, and I'm the Special Agent in Charge for Homeland Security Investigations Charlotte, which covers North and South Carolina. I'm here today to speak about the results of a recent, highly coordinated enforcement action in the Charleston area, one that underscores our unwavering commitment to public safety, community protection, and the power of collaboration. Over the course of this joint operation, Homeland Security Investigations, working side by side with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and our federal, state, and local partners, conducted an enforcement operation that led to the administrative arrest of more than 66 individuals who are in the United States illegally. These individuals were encountered during the execution of a search warrant at an unlicensed, illegal nightclub operating in plain view of the community. During this operation, we made 5 criminal arrests. Some of these individuals have been charged with serious offenses, including assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, possession of a controlled substance, and a felon in possession of a firearm. One individual taken into custody is wanted for murder in Honduras and will now face justice after evading it for far too long. Equally concerning, we encountered 7 juveniles at the location. These minors were turned over to the appropriate social services agencies to ensure they are safe and protected from further exploitation. This speaks to the deeply troubling conditions at this location, where criminal activity, illicit substances, and illegal firearms posed a direct threat not just to the neighborhood, but to the most vulnerable among us. This operation was not only about immigration enforcement, it was also about restoring order, removing threats from our streets, and ensuring the safety and well-being of Charleston area residents. It reflects the critical importance of the whole-of-government approach we continue to take across this region and the country. This investigation is ongoing, and as such, additional details will be limited at this time. I want to take a moment to personally thank Sheriff Carl Ritchie of the Charleston County Sheriff's Office and Chief Mark Keel of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division for their outstanding leadership and their department's commitment to this mission. Your agencies played a vital role in this operation, and we could not have achieved the success without your professionalism, insight, and dedication. To our federal and state partners, thank you as well. These kinds of results happen when agencies come together with one mission in mind: to safeguard the public and disrupt criminal networks that endanger our communities. To the people of Charleston, I want to reassure you, HSI and our partners are here for you. We're committed to protecting this community, holding criminals accountable, and ensuring that those who violate our laws, whether through violent crime or unlawful presence, are not allowed to continue doing so unchecked. This operation was a strong example of how law enforcement can work together to make our communities safer. We'll continue this important work with vigilance, professionalism, and partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask our governor, McMaster, to come up and say a few words. Governor, please.
Thank you, Sheriff. Sheriff, I want to congratulate you. You are doing exactly what you said you were going to do. President Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and it's making a difference. Just I invite you to think about this. You've heard some of these details of all these arrests, 116 or more, about 200 people in the place. Get this picture. It's in middle of the night, black dark, in a rural area, in this sort of a club, and you had all these people out there. This was after 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. And you had all these arrests were made. You had trafficking victims. You had the missing juvenile. You had one international murder being sought by Interpol, which is based, as you know, international police based in Paris, France. 10 underage juveniles, they were in there at the bar with all these other people. Firearms recovered, cocaine seized, controlled substances confiscated, vehicles seized. So much currency seized, they had to send it to the bank and let them count it on one of those machines that they have. All of that going on right here under our noses for all this time. Now, how did this happen? One way it happened is when you don't have strong law enforcement, this is what happens. And when you have, particularly in these cases now, that we're going to have now and we will have for years to come, when we have illegal immigration, people with criminal backgrounds, people bent on causing trouble, that are recognized some as terrorists, that are allowed to come through a completely open border, this is what you get. I can't think of a single thing good that would have been going on at this location at this time of night in our county. But this is what we are getting as a result of the lack of enforcement and the non-enforcement of the laws under the Biden administration. We'd get it under any administration, but no administration has done it as poorly as the Biden administration. Well, things have changed, and this conference today is explaining and presenting to the people not only of this county, not only these cities, but of this country, what happens, what the consequences are when you have that lack of enforcement with open borders, despite the fact that those in charge in the Biden administration were saying repeatedly, the border is closed, the border is closed. Well, you can look at this and you know that's not true. But this is also a good example of what happens when you have a coordinated approach with men and women working together to enforce the laws, and you have a president who is determined to enforce these laws. We're going to be seeing this for a number of years because there are a lot of people in here that are not supposed to be here. And they're making friends and associates with other people who have criminal records. And what these men and women busted up last night is an example of what is going on in other parts of our country and likely in other parts of our state. So we got a lot of work to do. But fortunately, final point, we got the right team to do it. And you're looking at that team right now. There's no better law enforcement anywhere in this country than in Carolina. And with a strong president like President Trump doing what he's doing to put the power of the federal government involved as well with the state and local, we're going to make great progress. So I say to all of you men and women, thank you, congratulations, and to the people of South Carolina, things are going to get better.
Thank you, Governor. I'll now ask our Attorney General, Alan Wilson, to please make some comments.
Thank you. First, Sheriff Ritchie, I want to thank you personally for the invitation you extended to me to be here today to talk about this press conference. First off, I think you've probably invited me to nearly half a dozen events since you have been sworn in as a sheriff, and it's true. You have done everything that you said you would do that you ran on. I did a ride-along with Sheriff Ritchie. He invited me to come down here, and he kept me out to 1:30 in the morning, which is about 4 hours past my bedtime. But we rode around, and I got to see what local law enforcement were doing in partnership with our federal partners at all hours of the night. And while people are sleeping peacefully in their beds at night, the men and women of the state and federal agencies standing up here are out there patrolling the streets and the communities and neighborhoods of this area of the state of Charleston County. And so I saw firsthand what goes on, and it's just incredible. And of course, I was here just a couple of weeks ago for an Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force operation, and I got to see firsthand not just patrolling the streets and neighborhoods of Charleston, we're patrolling the digital streets and neighborhoods in our community, and that's very powerful. Over the last 9 months, I've had 2 opportunities to go to the southern border. And on my last visit, which was about 10 days, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I was in the Yuma sector, and I met with ICE and border officials down there, Border Patrol agents rather, and what they told me was this. In May of 2023, the number of illegal border crossings happening every day was averaging about 1,500 crossings a day. Think about that, an average of 1,500 illegal crossings per day in May of 2023. In May of 2025, they are averaging 4 illegal border crossings a day, from 1,500 a day to 4 a day. And that is very powerful. Here's why it's powerful. What we learned is that the Mexican drug cartels south of the border, they control who gets to come to the border to cross it, and then the policies of this country control who's allowed to go into the interior. And so the cartels were very much engaged in allowing and facilitating the illegal migration because it was helping fuel a lot of the drug trafficking and the human trafficking and all the other illicit activity that was coming into this country. And so when you come here to South Carolina, and I've said it 1,000 times, South Carolina is very much a border state as the state of Arizona when it comes to the criminal activity that is coming here. And so when I see what Sheriff Ritchie and the leadership at HSI and the FBI and my partner here, the Chief Kill of the State Law Enforcement Division, all of his amazing team, when I see what they're doing when it comes to combating what's coming into this state, you should understand how important it is what they do. For instance, over the last 4 to 5 years, my investigations we've been operating with our partners, many of them are up here today, just historically, we have seen a historical amounts of meth in around the range of 500 kilograms of meth coming into the state of South Carolina over the last 4 years. All, again, cartel related. 544 kilograms of fentanyl coming in to this state, historically speaking. By the way, 1 kilogram of fentanyl is enough to kill 500,000 people, according to the DEA. And then 850 kilograms of cocaine coming into this state. Again, it was based, and as the governor said, the policies at the top matter. But also, it's not just the policies at the southern border. It's the law enforcement and the policies here in our respective state of South Carolina that matter too. Policies at the border allowed a lot of this stuff to come in here, and the enforcement policies of the people standing up here are what's getting it out of here. And so it does matter. South Carolina is a border state. I also want to give a shout out to our state human trafficking task force. A number of members of folks standing up here, their agencies are active participants in the state human trafficking task force. As you all heard, there were a number of alleged human trafficking victims. Last summer, the Department of Homeland Security, Office of the Inspector General, released a report saying that there were around 320,000 unaccompanied minors who were led into the United States and they cannot locate, that they do not know where they are. And I'm not here today to say that any of the ones that were found in this operation are part of that 320,000. We don't know. This is an ongoing investigation. But whether they're unaccompanied minors here illegally or whether they're resident U.S. Or residents of South Carolina who are being trafficked, one is too many. And so I want to thank the state task force participants in their day jobs working this operation, but on their volunteer job with the task force, they are taking a number of these minors into custody to help them in that transition from being rescued from a life of trafficking to being a survivor. And so I want to thank our law enforcement partners who are part of that task force to help human trafficking victims. Again, I want to thank Sheriff Ritchie. I want to thank Chief Mark Keel. I want to thank Special Agent in Charge Morant and all of the other members up here and their respective agencies. And Governor, thank you for your leadership, being a pro-law enforcement governor. We always appreciate you having our back. So thank you, sir.
Again, thank you. Is there anybody else from any other agencies that want to say something? I didn't think so. I blame you. Right now, we're going to take some questions. We're going to open it up. But please keep in mind, when you ask these questions, this is a very fluid, very active investigation. We're roughly 24 hours in. I'm hoping you see the transparencies here. We're giving it to you as soon as we can, when we can. As I said, operational security is still very important as we deal with the issues out here. So happy to take questions in just a minute. And you'll be first, I promise. No. Happy to take questions, and if I'm not the person to answer it, I'll at least defer to whoever's back here that can answer that question. Yes, sir.
My question is for Attorney General Wilson. Take a minute to comfort South Carolinians and talk about how these charges are going to stick. These people are going to stay in jail. They're going to be deported. They're going to be in trouble, and these judges aren't going to let them go.
So first off, there's a number of charges, both state and federal. I imagine the U.S. Attorney's Office will be involved with the federal partners. Obviously, you have a local solicitor here who will probably be handling most of the charges from this area. Now, my office has concurrent jurisdiction with our federal partners and our state solicitors, and so we through our state grand jury or through our regular prosecution division will be assisting when asked to do so. Obviously, I think how judges are elected matter, because when you have judges that give light or lenient sentences, you have to have a way to be able to impress upon those judges that those are not the kind of policies we want implemented from the bench, which is why I fought very hard to give my governor here the opportunity to put people on the commission that actually screens judges and nominates them to the General Assembly. So how we elect judges matters. I don't want to throw this all on the judges, but what I will say is for judges who are going to go lenient on the types of cases where children are involved, we're going to shine a lot of sunlight on that, and I will support Solicitor Scarlett Wilson. I will support U.S. Attorney Brian Sterling in the prosecution of these cases from my perch in the Attorney General's office. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
How long has this been an ongoing problem at the Alamo?
Do we have anybody who wants to speak on that specifically? All right. Eric, do you want to speak on that?
I can touch
If you
on it.
introduce yourself, thank you.
I'm Deputy County Administrator Eric Watson, Public Safety, Charleston County. The Alamo has been in existence for quite a while. We've had a number of noise complaint that kind of expanded to a violation because the owner expanded his property, and that launched an investigation for the county. He was found guilty in his absence. So it's an ongoing nuisance for the community.
And I'll say with that, it's amazing how we can go from a noise complaint to starting getting, again, intel, information from folks that maybe have gone there or may have seen activity or were concerned. We got that information. We have great partnerships. Point to we were able to make yesterday morning. So it's just important that you run down every lead and look at every fact of a case as we're responding and dealing with this issue. Yes, ma'am.
I think you said it started back in November, so that's been, what, 8 months ago you guys started looking at the Alamo?
That's my understanding from our team, yes, from November last year. And
I know you can't get into
No, ma'am.
specifics, but can you talk about, was it noise complaints like Eric mentioned? Was it something more? I mean, this has been building for 8 months.
Well, of course, it begins at that. Like I said, with the noise complaint, gets our attention, obviously, and some of the complaints from the neighbors, the businesses in that area, it's an industrial area, gets us there. Obviously, as we start investigating and we start developing leads, that's when we started noticing the assaults occurring in the parking lot, maybe some of the different illegal activity that was going on that caused us to take a deeper look. And I'm very grateful for the team, the large team that's standing here behind me, that continued to look into these matters to get us to the point we were yesterday. And then we'll continue investigating this, but thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I believe you said that the establishment won't be able to operate anymore. Can you expand on that after they've been shut down?
I can. It's been shut down, obviously, after the operation. And we're working with our code enforcement partners with Charleston County that have already put a notice on the property. It's under investigation. There are going to be multiple county violations, we know, and code enforcement violations. And we'll update you as we get through those, that will not be allowed to operate as a bar ever again. It should never been a bar or nightclub to begin with. So that'll be addressed. Again, we'll be working with our state partners on that one as well, with the alcohol licensing or non-licensing and those type of issues. But there will be enough on the report when code enforcement's through to ensure they are not able to open up again.
What licenses did they not? Can you share what licenses they didn't have? They didn't have through the.
Well, I don't know all of that answer, but I can tell you there was no license to sell alcohol, especially to underage people for sure. And there's probably questions about business licenses, but that's why D.C. Watson and his team are looking into this very closely, code enforcement, to identify all of those violations. I think there's going to be numerous before it's over with.
Can people in the county expect to see more operations of this scale?
They can. They absolutely can. And I want to tell anybody who's operating illegal establishments like this, selling drugs, human trafficking, I don't care what it is, if you're involved in illegal activity in Charleston County, I can assure you there's no place to hide. Again, we have a great team, great support behind us, and we support them in their enforcement activities. We are here to make Charleston County safe, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to ensure that people can live safe lives and not have to worry about what's going on around them. I can tell you, businesses in the surrounding area had to hire off properties when this place was open. So that's what we heard from some of those businesses, made phone calls saying thank you. And we need to see this happening so we could have a little better environment around us. So we will continue looking for those things. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sheriff. You
Hey.
said that 80 warrants were served. Can you tell us where those people were taken?
Well, no, ma'am, there's 116 warrants with roughly 80 people. And I will defer back to our ICE or HISI folks, if y'all can speak it or not, or your PIO. And we did, and some of those warrants were criminal that were housed in our jail and being dealt with here. And I don't know if y'all want to speak on that or not, the others.
I can provide further detail after.
No, say. So he'll provide that for you afterwards, the others, for operational reasons.
Thank you.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
also saw that SLED was the arresting agency on one person who was booked into the Cherokee Cannon Detention Center. That sounds similar to what you've mentioned about alcohol licensing and that type of thing. Is that the owner of the Alamo, or are you going to identify that person?
Well, obviously, I'll defer back to SLED on that, and I'll let you speak on that, sir. Since it was your arrest.
He is the operator of that establishment, or was.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Could you just share a general update on the victims, how they're doing, and what resources they're being given?
Again, I can tell you those that were identified, and again, they're alleged right now. Our team that they're working through that. DSS was involved. Our folks that handle that type of trafficking are having these conversations to see if we can get to that next level. These are alleged victims right now that we identified on site that we thought needed the intervention, and we gave them intervention, removed them from that area. They're safe, they're secure, and again, we're 24 hours in this. It's continuing, and we'll ensure that anyone who is identified as an actual victim of trafficking will continue to get the services they need to make them whole and make them safe. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of protecting the community, since this has been happening since November, can you speak on how you were kind of protecting them, or if you took any action before you carried out the operation?
Officers responded often to that location, would handle different complaints of the noise, obviously different complaints of the assaults that may have occurred in the parking lot. And I think, like I said, some of the surrounding agencies who had jurisdiction across the street had off-duty security. But let me remind you that we knew that there was going to be more to this investigation. That's why that we would respond to the issues, deal with anything that was an imminent threat to the community to allow us to continue to watch this investigation unroll, to have such a huge success that we did. Thank you.
Sheriff, I know you said you
Yes,
wanted to clarify the facts. I've seen on social media some people saying that they were there and that everyone's IDs were checked. Can you talk about what that process looked like, if everybody or if it was targeted to certain individuals in the establishment?
And that, again, is going to be with our HSI team. If y'all want to speak on it or afterwards, come on up. But I can tell you there was a good operation that was going on. I'd love for them to speak on that.
The last part of your question again, please.
People on social media saying that everybody in the establishment had their IDs checked, or were they just targeted to certain individuals? I'm just curious what that looked like.
No, everyone on the premises. It's important to keep in mind that this was a cartel after party, so everyone there had their IDs checked and were processed and either arrested or released.
So there was non-citizens and citizens who were arrested?
I'm sorry. Yes.
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 I know there were,
Yes.
Yes.
for sure. Yes, ma'am.
Can you expand on a cartel after party? I'm sorry, that just
Again, I'll
jumped out.
let you-
It begs that question.
So bad guys like to celebrate too, so this was their way to let off some steam. And they were unfortunately doing it right here in the community.
So you're understanding that everybody in the establishment was aware of it being a cartel, or were people there?
Well, I mean, it wasn't the secret, so I can't really speak to what every individual knew, but the community at large knew that there was nothing good going on at that establishment.
One more question, sir.
Okay. One more question? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Sheriff, would you say, based on the coordination of this, going into this kind of operation with all these agencies, that much of the outcome of this was expected with the number of arrests and warrants and say, but it seems like when you touch on, missing juvenile and, implications of trafficking, would you characterize that as, a surprise? Were there other surprises in this?
Sure. Honestly, we weren't surprised. I was surprised that the missing juvenile was found there, and actually quite relieved that we were able to locate and remove a missing juvenile from that situation. We had information, obviously, and it's still being, again, under investigation, that there was trafficking going on. So I hate to say it, but in being in the business as long as I've been in it, nothing surprises me anymore. Disappointing, yes, to know that we had to deal with this situation, but it goes back to these strong partnerships. And by the way, none of us met for the first time yesterday morning. We all know each other, we all have worked together, and it's all for that common goal of keeping our county safe and keeping those that live, work, play here as safe as possible. So great question, and I wish I could say it was a surprise, but not completely, but it was a nice bonus to get that missing child identified and picked up. And again, identifying those very young people that shouldn't have been at a bar anyway, and getting them to their parents and getting them off the street at that hour. But thank you. So we're going to wrap it up. Real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Ongoing operation. We're continuing the investigation. We're continuing to follow every lead. So I would ask anybody who has any information specifically to the operation yesterday, the Alamo, or any other situation that may need to be reported, to report any crimes, or if you know of any victims or a victim of yourself from this location, we ask you to please call this number, 803-896-7400, and we will absolutely follow up on whatever information you give us and do our part to keep you safe. Yes. Well, sure, I'm getting some good advice here. He's right. Just remember, everybody is presumed innocent until they're convicted in the court of law. So that goes back to where I started earlier, facts matter. So I'm hoping getting this information out, being as transparent as we can, just to know these folks, we had probable cause to make these arrests, that's why they were made, still have a court system that is still one of the best in the world, that these folks will be going through the court system and being dealt with at that level. So thank you for that, sir, and thank you for all your time. And as these continue, we will continue to update you on this operation. We'll continue to include you and others as we're making our county safe. So thank you again for your time.
You've been watching a live press conference out of North Charleston with the governor as well as the sheriff talking about several busts at an unsanctioned bar in North Charleston yesterday. And ICE involved, as they were pretty much saying that this was a bit of an after party for a cartel, and the investigation continuing. More details to come.